Welcome to EWTN Pro-Life Weekly, your weekly dose of the top pro-life news and issues, all from a Catholic perspective. I'm your guest host, Dr. Gracie Christie, filling in for Catherine Hadro while she's away. Thank you for joining us. In this week's show, New York State passed a law that pro-life organizations say could force them to hire employees who disagree with their core mission. We'll have analysis from Denise Harley, legal counsel with Alliance Defending Freedom. Planned Parenthood recently threw a happy hour for media professionals and told them they must abide by non-disclosure agreements to attend. We speak out. And this.
It's nice to know there's a support group, even though they don't know our names. There's somebody who cares about what happens to their child.
We bring you the story of Angel Gowns by Baba, a ministry that hopes to stitch up healing for families suffering from miscarriage, stillbirth, or infant loss. But first, our top story. Pennsylvania Governor Tom Wolf recently vetoed a bill that would have banned Down syndrome discrimination abortions. Wolf, a Democrat, vetoed a bill that would have placed a ban on abortion due to a prenatal diagnosis of Down syndrome. Supporters of the bill argued it would protect a vulnerable population. But Wolf said in a statement that he had, quote, significant concerns that enforcement of this legislation would upend the doctor-patient relationship and impede on patient confidentiality. Pennsylvania law currently permits abortion up to 24 weeks for any reason except to select a specific gender. Joining us now from Harrisburg is Pennsylvania State Representative Kate Klunk, the prime sponsor of this bill. Representative, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Gracie, for having me today.
Tell us why you decided to sponsor this bill.
Well, this bill is very important to the lives of those individuals living with Down syndrome, not only here in Pennsylvania, but across the world. I have heard from countless families and individuals living with Down syndrome and really have been able to see that they are lives worth living. So after meeting with them, I decided to be the prime sponsor this year on this bill, seeing this bill through not only the House, but the Senate. And unfortunately, we didn't get the end result that we wanted here in Pennsylvania with the governor's veto, but we're still going to be continuing to fight on.
But Governor Wolf claimed that there isn't any evidence that this bill is needed in Pennsylvania. Why is this bill needed?
This bill is needed because of the countless families who I have met. And I actually just met an uncle of a beautiful little girl who has Down syndrome, and he thanked me for my advocacy on this bill. We need this bill to protect these children because I feel that if we don't stand up for life and we don't stand up for these children, we're going to be going back to a very dark day in our human history. And I just don't want that to be the Pennsylvania or the United States that my daughter, my little Gracie at home, who's soon going to be 2, gets to live in.
Pennsylvania law permits abortion up to 24 weeks for any reason except gender discrimination. Wouldn't banning abortion after a Down syndrome diagnosis also protect against discrimination?
Yes, it does. I would argue that if you choose to abort a child because of a Down syndrome diagnosis, you are discriminating against them in the womb before they're even born, just because they have that extra chromosome. And I would argue that that extra chromosome brings it with a lot of extra positives that I've been able to see through my advocacy on this bill.
So what's your message to Governor Wolf about his veto?
Well, I'm really disheartened by his choice to veto this bill. This bill passed in a bipartisan, overwhelming manner. And I really do believe that the people of Pennsylvania are on our side with this. I will not grow weary, though, over this veto. We will stand ready to continue the fight. The families and individuals living with Down syndrome and those babies who need a voice need us. So one day there will be a governor here in Pennsylvania, and it's clearly not going to be Governor Tom Wolf. But when there is, we're going to stand ready to pass this bill so it can become the law of the land. But Gracie, I'm not surprised that the governor vetoed this. You know, he has received countless donations from Planned Parenthood for his campaign, and they've also Vito admitted that they have pumped in millions of dollars to help him not only get elected, but recently get reelected. So unfortunately, the families and the individuals living with Down syndrome don't have that kind of a pack behind them, but they have individuals like me standing up for them and all of my friends here in the House and the Senate who stood up for life that day and put up that yes vote.
Well, it seems clear to me, Kate, that you are going to try to pass this legislation again.
We will continue to fight. We have to. These lives are worth living, and we need to stand up and be their voice.
Kate, I heard that you chose a certain Bible verse when you were sworn in. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, it's a passage from Galatians, and the point is that you do not grow weary when things just don't go your way. That keep persevering, and someday you will reap the benefits of all of your hard work and labor. And we will continue to work hard on this bill. One day it will become the law of the land here in Pennsylvania, and until that day, we will continue working hard for those living and those in the womb with Down syndrome.
Pennsylvania State Representative Kate Klunk. Thank you, Kate.
Thank you so much.
Joining us now in studio is Marilyn Musgrave, Vice President of Government Affairs for the Susan B. Anthony List. Marilyn, thank you for being here.
It's wonderful to be here. Thank you.
Marilyn, tell us about Representative Klunk's pro-life leadership.
Well, we are so proud of her. She's just the kind of woman we need leading on life in a state legislature. She's part of our National Pro-Life Women's Caucus, and she's a powerful leader on life, especially now thinking of unborn children with Down syndrome that have a lethal discrimination against them taking place. So we're very proud of her and her efforts on behalf of the precious unborn child.
And what do you make of Governor Wolf's veto of this law?
Well, it's very disheartening. It's very disappointing. We do know that Governor Tom Wolf, though, has vetoed other pro-life legislation. He vetoed the Pain-Capable Unborn Child Protection Act in 2017, and he also vetoed the dismemberment ban that would prevent abortions that literally tear an unborn child from limb to limb. It's so barbaric, it's hard to even talk about.
Marilyn, I'm a physician, and I've had the sad experience of diagnosing babies in utero with Down syndrome and then hearing that they were aborted. How widespread and common is this practice?
Well, it's very widespread in the United States. In fact, 67% of parents that get that diagnosis go ahead and terminate their child. They have an abortion. And it's even higher in other countries. In recent months, there was news about Iceland eradicating Down syndrome. Eradicating Down syndrome?
Ridiculous.
Not at all. They had terminated the lives of precious unborn children that were diagnosed as Down syndrome. And in other countries around the world, such as France and Denmark, it's even higher than it is in the US. So while there could be life-saving research taking place, research that would make these babies healthier, instead, in many countries, and sadly in the United States, their human rights are violated in the womb.
And so you think that these legislations are necessary, these laws are necessary?
They're very necessary, and probably you know, and I know people who've been pressured to have an abortion when they've gotten the diagnosis of Down syndrome. Extreme pressure, even someone in our own family has had that. And a woman is very vulnerable, as you know, doctor, while she's pregnant. And imagine her doctor pressuring her to have an abortion because her baby has Down syndrome. It really is lethal discrimination.
And this is very common, as you said, outside the United States.
It is very common, even at higher rates than we have here.
Marilyn, how else can state lawmakers protect this vulnerable population?
Well, we would be very happy if more states would enact laws just like this. 11 states have introduced or enacted laws banning discrimination based on disability. We need more of those laws because, quite frankly, they pressure the Supreme Court to take this up. The Supreme Court has declined to hear one case like this, but saying they don't have an opinion on it. But Justice Thomas has written that it's not a settled issue and it needs to be resolved. So we're hopeful that people in this country will see the value of an unborn child, An unborn child with Down syndrome can live a very good life. As you know, all the stereotypes about Down syndrome children are being broken every day. They're some of the happiest people around us.
Marilyn Musgrave, Vice President of Government Affairs for the Susan B. Anthony List. Thank you, Marilyn.
It's good to be with you.
The Trump administration has made significant progress in implementing pro-life policies internationally, such as the Protecting Life and Global Health Assistance Program and updating the Mexico City policy. However, domestic organizations that work overseas are not subject to the Protecting Life and Global Health Assistance Program, and some receiving international family planning funding under state and foreign operations promote abortion. The Shaheen Amendment to the Senate State and Foreign Operations Bill would increase funds to these groups, and that brings us to this week's call to action. Go to prolifeweekly.com to tell Congress not to increase funding for so-called international family planning groups, as the money will be used to promote abortions. Once you get to this website, you will be able to type in your basic information so we can tailor this message for your specific lawmaker and send it straight to them. Again, the Shaheen Amendment to the Senate State and Foreign Operations Bill would increase funds to groups that actively promote abortion. It's important that the pro-life movement tells Congress not to increase funding for these groups. Tell Congress not to increase funding for so-called international family planning groups by going to prolifeweekly.com. Turning now to our next story, attorneys representing a faith-based pregnancy center and other religious groups filed a lawsuit last month in federal court against the state of New York to challenge a law they say could force them to hire employees who disagree with their core mission. In November, New York enacted a law referred to as the Boss Bill that prohibits employers from enforcing codes of conduct or statements of belief about certain, quote, reproductive health care decisions, including abortion and contraceptives. The law offers no exceptions for religious employers. The lawsuit filed by Alliance Defending Freedom attorneys on behalf of pro-life organizations, including Compass Care Pregnancy Services and National Institute of Family and Life Advocates, seeks to challenge this law in federal court. Joining us now from Atlanta is Denise Harley, legal counsel with Alliance Defending Freedom. Denise, thank you for being here.
Thanks so much for having me.
Can you explain to our viewers what exactly does this law New York passed do?
Well, all Americans should be free to live and work according to their beliefs without having to fear unjust punishment from the government. But the state of New York has decided that it's going to force churches and pro-life faith-based organizations to hire people that don't agree with their core mission and beliefs, and that's unconstitutional.
But isn't this a violation of religious liberty and the First Amendment?
Absolutely, and the Supreme Court case law on that is very clear. The Supreme Court has said over and over again that government hostility towards people of faith is unconstitutional and has no place in a free society. The Supreme Court's also told us that state governments can't tell churches how to operate in terms of their faith and their own internal codes of conduct. But this New York law would actually force churches to violate their own beliefs and would forbid any sort of faith-based organization from even having an internal moral code of conduct.
And what about Catholic schools and hospitals in New York? How could this impact them?
This would affect Catholic schools and hospitals, any faith-based organization, any organization that has moral principles that relate to what New York calls reproductive health decisions. And we don't even know how broad that might stretch, but that could mean teachings on marriage and sexuality. That could mean teachings on reproduction and contraception and abortion. This is going to affect a wide range of employers and organizations, and that's why we filed a lawsuit to strike the law down.
Denise, this law comes after New York passed some of the most permissive abortion laws in the country. What do you think the state is trying to accomplish?
You're right. This is the third in a row of very pro-abortion laws that New York has passed. It's clear that New York is demeaning pro-life views and trying to force its own pro-abortion views on everyone. And that's not what America's about. We are allowed to tolerate good faith differences of opinions, and we are supposed to have religious freedom, free speech, and free association. But New York is so pro-abortion that it's trying to impose this burden upon people who have deep religious objections to abortion.
Can you tell us about the work of Compass Care Pregnancy Services and the other groups behind this lawsuit?
You bet. Our client, Compass Care, is a pregnancy care center, which, as you may know, is one of thousands across the country that is doing great work in loving and supporting women who are facing unplanned pregnancies and helping them choose life for their babies and offering them material support, emotional support, spiritual resources, social services, and they do all of it for free. They're a charity. Our other client is First Bible Baptist Church, which is a Bible believing church that also doesn't believe in abortion. So these are organizations that are doing good in the community. They are nonprofits and they have every right to live according to their beliefs and make sure that the people that work there also are in accordance with those same biblical, religious, faith-based beliefs.
And do you think, Denise, that this challenge will be successful?
We do. We're very optimistic. You know, it was only last year the Supreme Court in Masterpiece Cake Shop said that state government hostility towards people of religious faith is unconstitutional and violates the First Amendment. And that's exactly what New York is doing in this bill. It's also violating the free association rights, where the Supreme Court has said over and over again, Americans have the right to associate with who they want. This law would actually force pro-life pregnancy centers like Compass Care to hire abortion advocates to counsel women for abortion, which is the very opposite of their core mission. So we are very confident. We've already asked the court, the federal district court, to go ahead and strike down this law on its face.
Denise Harley, Legal Counsel, Alliance Defending Freedom. Thank you so much, Denise.
Thank you.
When we come back,
We just had a pile of little gowns, and now it's just amazing the size that this ministry has grown.
we bring you the story of Angel Gowns by Baba, a ministry that hopes to stitch up healing for families suffering miscarriage, stillbirth, or infant loss. Stay tuned as EWTN Pro-Life Weekly continues after this break. Welcome back to EWTN Pro-Life Weekly. I'm Dr. Gracie Christie, filling in for Catherine Hadro. Planned Parenthood recently threw a happy hour for media professionals and told them they must abide by non-disclosure agreements to attend. That's this week's Speak Out segment. A journalist for Vice News reported that she objected to Planned Parenthood's demand that she sign an NDA to attend their media happy hour, as doing so would prevent her from reporting what she learned there. When she told the abortion provider she would report that she was required to agree to an NDA, Planned Parenthood claimed the request was made in error by a new employee. However, the reporter said this was the second time Planned Parenthood asked her to agree to an NDA at one of their events. We know Planned Parenthood enjoys a friendly relationship with many members of the media. They even give out media awards. So these happy hours are not a surprise, but neither is Planned Parenthood's demand for secrecy and deception. Apparently, they do not even trust friendly press to report on their organization. This journalist should be praised for bringing this to light. I hope other journalists follow her lead in refusing to agree to Planned Parenthood's NDAs. A corporation that was providing real medical care would be proud of what they do. This is yet another sign that what Planned Parenthood practices isn't medicine, something that to me as a physician is clear all the time. And remember, there is something you can do to counter today's culture of death. Follow this week's call to action. Go to prolifeweekly.com to tell Congress not to increase funding for so-called international family planning groups that promote abortions. This week, Catherine Hadro brings you the story of Angel Gowns by Baba, a ministry that hopes to stitch up healing for families suffering miscarriage, stillbirth, or infant loss. Here's this week's Pro-Life Focus.
The finished product has this. It's a hospital gown, okay? We embroider this on the back.
One look at these hospital gowns and you can see they are designed with the tiniest patients in mind.
Simple pieces, that's made if anybody would like to learn how to make it.
Maryland Catholic wife, mother, and grandmother Anita Schatz is the founder of Angel Gowns by Baba, Baba meaning grandmother. The Angel Gowns ministry uses donated wedding dresses to create tiny burial gowns for babies who are stillborn, miscarried, or who die shortly after birth.
Angel gowns is a concept that a nurse came up with when she saw the need years ago. She's worked in labor and delivery and saw the babies being lost, and nothing was being done to help the grief of the parents. I don't care how far along a woman is in her pregnancy, she grieves for that baby. I mean, this is life.
Schatz founded her own Angel Gowns nonprofit last January after friends began mentioning the idea to her. She believed she was being sent on a mission by our Holy Mother.
Well, I've always been faithful to Our Lady, and I told her years ago, Blessed Mother, use me. One thing led to another, and I said, Blessed Mother, what are you sending me here? This is huge. This is not a one-time thing. This is forever. You want me to do this forever? So you have to send me an army, and you have to send me everything I need. And she has.
Just a year and a half after its launch, Angel Gowns by Baba boasts more than 150 volunteers nationwide. This Maryland woman's basement has been transformed into an assembly line. It's where the army of angels snip, stitch, and crochet away for what they hope is a little bit of healing for a family in need.
These women just make such beautiful gowns. We don't just make a plain white gown. These are made from wedding gowns. They're gorgeous.
Angel Gowns by Baba contacts local hospitals to find out their needs and to donate their items for free. They've also begun shipping across the country at no cost.
We just had a pile of little gowns, and now it's just amazing the size that this ministry has grown.
Anita Shiroki and Marianne Kurek were the first two volunteers to show up at Schatz's doorstep.
I had heard about Angel Gowns before, years ago, and so I thought, oh wow, here's the opportunity to and she's right down the street, so to donate my gown to her. And so Marianne and I have been friends for many, many years, and so we both decided to come.
Everyone knows someone who's had a miscarriage or has lost a child. It's very universal, and I think it's my biggest reason for being here is because I myself has had a miscarriage. And it's nice to know there's a support group, even though they don't know our names. There's somebody who cares about what happens to their child.
Miscarriage is a silent suffering that strikes close to home for this group's founder.
Well, I lost a grandchild once. I don't know if it was a girl or a boy. It's hard. You don't forget. I didn't want anybody to suffer this. They didn't have a gown. They had nothing. There was no funeral. There was nothing. The baby was just gone. And I can't imagine that. I want to help everybody. I don't care what size that baby is. We want to help.
The small sizes are a stark reminder about what's at stake here, which is why Schatz always takes her newest creations, from the gowns to the crocheted caps, to be blessed by a Catholic priest every Sunday. And while the greater Angel Gowns ministry movement has no religious affiliation, Schatz is unapologetic in weaving her Catholic faith into her work.
All right, we're going to begin our prayer today.
Even beginning every volunteer workshop with prayer.
Lord God, Heavenly Father.
These volunteers with a range in skill levels can create about 40 gowns from one wedding dress, which Angel Gowns by Baba is not lacking. The group estimates they have about 900 dresses in storage.
We have plenty of wedding gowns. I must have about 900 of them here right now, so please don't send me your wedding gowns. I appreciate it, but right now I don't need them. We need money because it costs me a lot of money to overnight a little angel gown.
Anita Schatz expects to stay busy for a long time with this ministry because the demand is tragically high. And even though the lives that are lost are short ones and their size small, the young child's worth and dignity are invaluable.
That does it for this edition of EWTN Pro-Life Weekly. Until next time, be sure to reach us at prolifeweekly@ewtn.com or connect with us on social media. Just search for EWTN Pro-Life on all the major platforms. And remember, life is a gift. Your life is a gift. God bless.